And here we are at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library, right across the street from the museum. And today we're sitting with James Cornelius. He is curator of the Lincoln Collection. And I am so proud to be here today, sir. And thank you very much for inviting us in and talking with us.
My pleasure, Kurt.
How long have you been curator here?
I've been here about 6.5 years. So I wasn't here at the opening, which was just over 8 years ago.
Right.
I missed all that excitement and all that drama, but it's a great place to work.
Right. We had the president outside,
yes.
bringing open the doors.
We've had senators and governors and foreign dignitaries and millions of the average people.
That's beautiful. Now, you're in charge, curator of the Lincoln Collection. So tell me exactly how extensive is the Lincoln Collection?
It's 52,000 items, which is mostly books and papers. It's pretty small for this whole building, since we're also the State Historical Library still, which was the old name before 2004. So 90% of what's in this building is Illinois history and general Civil War, especially in other strengths, genealogy and whatnot. And that overlaps to some extent with the Lincoln Collection. So paintings, sculptures, photographs, prints, pieces of wood from every building Lincoln lived in, except for the White House. Books that the family owned, obviously a little bit of Mary's clothing and apparel.
And all that's kept here.
And all that's kept here. This is the world's largest collection of Lincoln things.
So how many pieces would you say?
52,000.
52,000 pieces.
Yeah.
So how do you manage all of that? I mean, that's a lot to keep track of, number one, much less to keep it rotated. And that is partly what the museum's all about, is being able to display those pieces.
Right. Well, and we're a research collection too, of course. Researchers are coming in here all the time, or emailing or calling. And a lot of that stuff, as I say, is just books and papers. Old, new, in between, rare, not rare. And I've got a couple of great staff members who help keep it all in order. The published books are one thing, reference files full of the strangest categories. People want to know about the Lincoln's dogs, you know, and they want to know about his stovepipe hat.
And you have all that.
We have all this. We've got all these files, and we've got files on all the artists who've ever drawn Lincoln, or sculptors who've sculpted him, and sheet music about him.
So how do you go about validifying these pieces as people bring them to you, or as they donate them to you? How do you go about the validity of them?
Yeah, that's tough. A fair bit of the best stuff in this collection came directly from the Lincoln family. The last descendant of Abraham and Mary died in 1985, and there are no other direct heirs. And he gave us, about 8 years before that, a whole bunch of wonderful material, paintings, sculptures, books, clothing, documents, other things from the family's own homes. Otherwise, we bought, that is our foundation bought about 6 years ago, the biggest privately owned collection of Lincoln stuff, which we call Lincolniana, which is a fun word to say.
Now, what are some of your favorite pieces of this collection? You have to have some favorites.
I do, and it changes from time to time. Of course, the most famous ones are his stovepipe hat from his Illinois days. It was purchased about 2 blocks from where we sit on the public square, on the west side of the square, from Josiah Adams's hat shop. Wow. And then the Gettysburg Address, of course, which is on display right now until the end of November for the anniversary of it, 150th this year. Right. I'm pretty touched by some 1848 letters between Abraham and Mary. We sort of refer to them as love letters, although they're not kissy smoochy love letters. But he was in Washington as a congressman at the time. She was back in Kentucky, staying with her father and family with the 2 little boys. And they burned almost all of their personal correspondence before they left for Washington in 1861. Right. But a few things survived, and so this little pair of, dear Mary and dear my dear husband letters are really wonderful, and they're the most personal things, I think.
So at any given time, how many of those 52,000 are actually on display at the museum?
Yeah, good question. There are 34 display cases in the Presidential Museum here that are sealed, are environmentally monitored, and are essentially locked up,
Sure.
break-proof, that hold right now a total of about 110 historic items. Some of those are usually not Lincoln. There's a big case in the Ghosts of the Library queue, the waiting room, where we do other Illinois history or other topics. And we've done Stephen Douglas, we've done the Mormons, we've done the Chicago World's Fair, lots of different topics. So that call it about 100 on average at any given time in those 33, 34 cases.
And then how often are they rotated or maybe added to or just a few subtracted from?
Right, right. Well, that's becoming tougher as we have fewer and fewer staff here, as the state of Illinois' budget difficulties continue to affect us pretty badly in some ways. But in other ways, we keep going because we have to. There's one thing that's permanent in there, and that is the tombstone of their second boy, Eddie Lincoln, who died at the age of 3 here in Springfield in 1850. And that is permanently there on display. Then otherwise, there's anywhere, depending on the material, from 6 months to 2, 3, 4 years for things. Paper, of course, has to come out of the light, even though it's monitored light. We don't want to leave it in there for too long. Ink fades. Paper very slowly disintegrates when exposed to light and oxygen. You can't stop that. They try to do the best they can with the Declaration of Independence at the National Archives in Washington. We don't have the facilities for the incredibly expensive atmospherically controlled case they have for that. But we've got things that are pretty close.
Right.
And otherwise, things like a book that one of the family members owned, or a sculpture by a fine artist made in the early 20th century, say, that can sit out for some time. But we do try to rotate everything. Next week we will change out one of the cases that hasn't been changed in a long time about Lincoln's tomb and the afterlife of the tomb.
Now, for those individuals that haven't been by the museum, what are the operating hours that they can go in and view these pieces?
We're open 9 to 5, 362 days a year. So every weekend, but the only days we're closed are Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Day.
Oh, even on Sundays you're open?
Even on Sundays.
Wow.
Every Sunday.
That's fantastic.
It is.
Now, probably, unfortunately, our time flies by here very quickly. And I'm wondering, how does it make you feel to be in charge, the curator of such a collection of artifacts of one of our most famous presidents of all time?
It is an honor and a thrill most days. It's especially exciting to show things to the public, both live over there and on some researchers here and VIP guests who are either maybe just passing through from another state or another country, or are potential donors to our foundation. They get a little behind-the-scenes peek, as we'll have in a moment here, at some things that I get to show them privately. And people weep when they see some of these things. The Emancipation Proclamation is extremely powerful to a lot of people. And his stovepipe hat generally draws a gasp from almost everyone who sees it.
Now, you mentioned we're going to take a look a little bit behind the scenes here in a moment. What are we going to see in this little episode?
Well, it's not very exciting visually in some respects. It's a large closet, basically. We keep all the books downstairs on compact shelving. That is, it rolls when you push a button to save space. And shelves and drawers full of those thousands of old newspapers, prints, photographs, broadsides, other things from the era, artworks, and then inside the vault, within a vault, is where we keep Lincoln's manuscripts and those of his family and their private possessions.
Oh, beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited about seeing that, and
Okay.
I really appreciate you bringing us down here
Okay.
today and letting us view what we are going to be viewing.
Okay.
And thank you, and please invite us back when you got
Okay.
something going on.
I will. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Okay, and this is some of the more priceless items, I guess.
Yes. Almost everything that belongs to the family or is in some other way very valuable, we keep in this room. A couple of things are too big, or you just have to lay flat in one of those locked drawers out there. But Abraham's a note to Secretary of War Cameron in 1861. Please lose no time in giving an interview to Adjutant General Wheat of Western Virginia and furnishing him, if possible, with what arms, equipage in French, etc. he needs. This is very important and should not be neglected or delayed. This is the start of the state of West Virginia, breaking off from slave-holding Lower Virginia.
Wow, that's incredible.
Sure when it was taken or where, but it's very rare, so it was a great discovery.
Is that the necklace that that lady was talking
Yeah.
about?
Mary's diamond necklace.
Oh, is that Mary's?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, geez. That's beautiful. Did Lincoln give that to her?
Mm-hmm.
What's this other
Diamonds and
necklace?
gold. This one is red coral, which Mary bought on her own, as far as we know. Coral is illegal now to work with or to trade in, but it was legal in those days.